What fell? Yes, Bach fell.
A massive purple column of fire and smoke rose over Russia today, resembling a nuclear mushroom cloud. A powerful explosion occurred at a base with the newest nuclear missile systems near Orenburg, after which a huge purple column of smoke appeared in the air. Well, later, a video of a huge missile falling also appeared. And now, experts are saying that there was a failed launch of a heavy, liquid-fueled intercontinental ballistic missile of the Satan or Sarmat A type in Yasny, which led to serious consequences. But that's not all. In general, something is really wrong with missiles in Russia. At Baikonur, during the launch of Soyuz MS-28 to the International Space Station on November 27, the service cabin collapsed. Footage from the Roscosmos broadcast shows this. This refers to the movable folding structure under the launch facility, where work is carried out on the tail section of the rocket. Well, in Moscow they have already admitted that after the accident, Roscosmos no longer has the ability to send cosmonauts into space. But what's most interesting is still the explosion at the base in the Orenburg region, because there are already theories about which rocket exactly crashed there and caused that huge column of purple smoke. I'm Alexei Pechi. Let's discuss this topic. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, give it a like, write any detailed comment, and subscribe to my Telegram channel Peachy News. The link to it is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so financially with any donation or a paid sponsorship subscription using the links and details in the description of this video. I would be grateful for any support you can give. On November 28th, a powerful explosion occurred at the Dombrovsky Strategic Missile Forces base in Yasny, Orenburg region, where the latest avant-garde complexes are located. Eyewitnesses said a purple smoke cloud rose into the sky after the incident. And here it's important to make a remark right away. The Yasny Cosmodrome is one of Russia's key facilities from which launches of intercontinental missiles carrying nuclear weapons are possible. In 2023, they began rearming the avant-garde complex here, which Vladimir Putin calls a system that, quote, nullifies American missile defense. The base also launched Dnepr carrier rockets. Avangard is a Russian hypersonic special-purpose warhead that is mounted on intercontinental ballistic missiles and, according to the official version, is capable of striking targets at intercontinental distances. It moves through the atmosphere at very high speed, maneuvering in both course and altitude. Well, that's the official Russian version. In short, it was this base that Putin used to scare the West, saying that Russia was ready to attack the enemy with nuclear missiles from there. Officially, Putin's people are keeping quiet about which missile exactly exploded in Yasny, but the experts have different theories. I suggest we discuss them. Some experts believe that we're talking about the R-36M2 Voevoda missile. If the Voevoda missile really exploded, then the purple smoke could be extremely toxic. After all, there could have been a release of nitrogen tetroxide, which is used specifically in this missile. In Russia, it's commonly called amyl. It's used as an oxidizer with hydrazine. This is a self-igniting pair that is stored at room temperature and burns upon contact with each other. That is, when amyl and hydrazine come into contact, they ignite immediately. So, nitrogen tetroxide partially decomposes into a gas upon contact with air. And this gas is exactly the same color as that cloud with a purple tint. Theoretically, they could have conducted a test launch of another missile, which can be launched from a silo. It could have been that very praised intercontinental ballistic missile, the 15-28 Sarmat. In 2018, the fifth launch of the missile was carried out from a converted silo launcher for Voevoda missiles at the same base. The Universal Rocket 100 launch vehicle with the Avangard unit and payload. In 2022, there were reports about plans to launch a Universal Rocket 100N with the Avangard unit from the test site in Yasny itself. And so, when a video of the rocket crash appeared online, most experts agreed that it was indeed the much-praised Sarmat missile. And here, experts remind us that last year, the Sarmat launch silo exploded in Plesetsk, which is why the Kremlin decided to test it now at the Domborovsky base. In addition, experts are certain that the color of the smoke clearly indicates a liquid-fueled missile. And all possible options for Dombarovsky are exactly of that type. As for the cause of the accident, this part is actually quite interesting. Experts insist that it was specifically the control and navigation systems that failed, because it was clear that the rocket took off, meaning it was launched, and then something happened. Russia used to get components from the West specifically for these systems. After all, Russians don't have enough brains to develop complex electronics on their own. But now sanctions prevent them from buying these components. Moreover, Ascent researcher from France, Etienne Marcos, pointed out that in recent days, notices to pilots have been published for the launch waiting period, covering the area between Dombarovsky and the Kura test range in Kamchatka. On the other hand, according to those same notices for pilots, the launch zone was calculated not for the silo used for avant-garde tests, but for another one that was recently modernized. Work at this new site on the new silo began in the spring of 2025, after the ice melted. After the complete destruction of the Sarmat silo in Plesetsk in September 2024. The main hypothesis was the continuation of tests from the future positions of the missile's combat deployment. Work had already begun in Uzur and Dombarovsky, which was used for avant-garde tests and is farther from the Kura test range. The likelihood of choosing this particular site was still higher, and if, along with the missile, the upgraded launch pad there was also damaged, listen, that would actually be wonderful news. For the Russians, that's in 2 years, September 2024. They completely destroyed one silo that Sarmat didn't launch, it exploded, they completely destroyed the silo. If they destroyed it again this time, that's great, really, well done, keep it up. Overall, the Yasny Cosmodrome is one of 11 sites in Russia from which it is possible to launch long-range ground-based missiles, including missiles with nuclear warheads. In 2023, the Yasny missile unit began rearming with the newest silo-based missile system Avangard. And here is the dictator. Putin stated that Russia's acquisition of the Avangard nullified the United States' investment in the missile defense system. He says, the Americans spent years on missile defense, but Avangard wiped it out completely. But for now, this base is cancelling itself out. And in this regard, I just can't help but mention one more wonderful piece of news. On the eve of November 27, at the Baikonur Cosmodrome, during the launch of the Soyuz MS-28 spacecraft to the International Space Station, there was the collapse of the service cabin. We're talking about a movable structure under the launch facility. And, as it became known, as a result of the accident, the launches of the Soyuz and Progress spacecraft are now postponed indefinitely. And that means that, in fact, from this day, Russia has lost the ability to launch people into space. And that's wonderful news. Well, as for you unwashed Russians who listened up to this point, remember that starting January 1, 2026, you'll also be paying more taxes. But no, not for space or high technology, but for war, continuing conflict, and building rockets, etc. That's what Russia is all about. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Bye, everyone.